The forgotten town of Hollow Creek. Hollow Creek. A name whispered on the wind, a ghost of a town lost to time. Empty streets, overgrown with weeds, stretched between dilapidated buildings. Among them stood the Miller House, a Victorian mansion with peeling paint and boarded windows. Locals told stories, whispers of a family tragedy, of a haunting presence. The house stood silent, shrouded in shadow, a monument to forgotten sorrow. Sarah, a photography student, heard the stories. Drawn to the macabre, she saw an opportunity. Her final project captured the essence of fear, of the unknown. The Miller House, she decided, would be her muse. Sarah's photography project. The old iron gate groaned as Sarah pushed it open. Her camera bag felt heavy on her shoulder, her heart pounded in her chest. The air hung heavy and still, thick with the smell of decay. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the canopy of ancient trees, casting long, eerie shadows. She stepped onto the porch, the wood creaking ominously beneath her feet. Taking a deep breath, she raised her camera. She moved through the house, each room a tableau of neglect. Dust-covered furniture, cobwebs draped like gauzy curtains, shattered glass crunching underfoot. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. A sense of unease settled over her, a prickling at the back of her neck. She was alone, yet she felt watched. The Miller House. A grand staircase, once elegant, now creaked ominously. Sarah ascended, her hand trailing along the dusty banister. Upstairs, a hallway stretched before her, lined with closed doors. One door stood ajar, beckoning her forward. She hesitated, then pushed it open. The room was dark, illuminated only by a sliver of sunlight piercing through a crack in the boarded-up window. Dust motes danced in the ethereal beam, and there, in the centre of the room, stood a grand piano. Its ebony surface was dulled with age, the ivory keys yellowed. A music book lay open on the stand, its pages brittle and faded. The grand piano. Sarah approached the piano, drawn to its melancholic beauty. She ran her fingers lightly over the cool, smooth surface of the wood, feeling the intricate carvings beneath her fingertips. The wood was dry and cracked in places, but the piano seemed to emanate a strange energy, a faint hum that vibrated through her hand. She lifted the heavy lid, revealing the strings within. She pressed a key, the sound echoing through the silent house. It was out of tune, the note discordant and jarring. She quickly released the key, a shiver running down her spine. The sound seemed to hang in the air, a dissonant vibration that refused to fade. The hair on the back of Sarah's neck stood on end. A cold spot formed around her, the air growing heavy and oppressive. The single note she'd played seemed to linger, echoing in the silence. Then a soft melody began to play on the piano. It was faint at first, barely audible, but it grew steadily louder, more insistent. Each note was crystal clear, played with a delicate touch. It was a haunting melody, both beautiful and melancholic. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she was not alone. Someone or something was playing the piano. Slowly, Sarah turned from the piano. Her breath caught in her throat. Standing behind her, shrouded in a pale, luminescent glow, was a figure. It was a woman, her form indistinct and shimmering. She wore a long, flowing gown, her hair piled high on her head. Her face was obscured by the shadows, but Sarah could feel her eyes, cold and piercing, fixed upon her. The ghostly figure continued to play, the melody flowing effortlessly from her fingertips. Sarah stood frozen, paralyzed by fear. The air crackled with an unseen energy, the temperature plummeting. She tried to speak, to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. The ghostly melody seemed to wrap around her, pulling her in, suffocating her. Then, as quickly as it began, the music stopped. The ghostly figure turned towards Sarah, her form solidifying. Her face, now visible, was etched with sadness and longing. Her voice, when she spoke, was a low whisper that seemed to slither into Sarah's very being. "Stay," she whispered, her voice filled with a chilling desperation. "Play with me." Panic surged through Sarah, breaking the spell that held her captive. She stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. Turning, she fled from the room, her camera clattering to the floor. She didn't look back, didn't dare to breathe until she burst out of the house and into the relative safety of the daylight. Sarah never returned to Hollow Creek. The memory of that day, of the haunted house and the ghostly pianist, remained etched in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling of cold dread that clung to her, the echo of the mournful melody that seemed to follow her wherever she went. She tried to forget, to bury the experience deep within herself. But the melody haunted her dreams, weaving its way into her waking thoughts. She could almost feel the phantom touch of unseen fingers on her own, guiding them over the keys of an imaginary piano. Weeks later, Sarah found her camera. It had been lying forgotten in the bottom of her bag, a tangible reminder of that terrifying day. With trembling hands, she turned it on. To her surprise, it still worked. She scrolled through the images. Most were blurry, out-of-focus shots taken in her haste to escape. But then she stopped. There, in the last photo, was an image of her standing in the music room. The picture was dark, grainy, but there was no mistaking the translucent figure standing behind her, its hand reaching out towards her with a longing that sent chills down her spine. The ghostly pianist had captured her own image, a terrifying souvenir of Sarah's encounter with the supernatural. Sarah deleted the photo, but the image remained seared into her memory. She knew with a chilling certainty that the haunting wasn't over. The melody continued to echo in her dreams, a constant reminder of the ghostly pianist trapped within the walls of the Miller house. And she couldn't shake the feeling that she was somehow connected to it, bound to the house and its secrets by a haunting melody she could never quite forget. The Miller house stood silent, a watchful presence in the forgotten town. The piano remained, a conduit to the other side, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to awaken its haunting melody. And Sarah, forever changed by her experience, could only listen to the echoes of that haunting tune, a chilling reminder of the day she encountered the ghostly pianist of Hollow Creek.